Welcome, I'm David Nurse, MBA shooting coach turned life optimization coach, speaker, author, leader of all types. On this show, we bring on high performers, athletes, CEOs, entrepreneurs, people doing amazing things in this world, but they weren't always at that spot. And we talk about how they got through their stuck situation and made their pivot to achieve their success. So join me every week as we pivot and go.
I'm dreaming vivid, so I'm living my goals. Written to existence, you know I'm doing the most. I'm steady winning, having breakfast for dinner, cause I'm always giving a toast. I live that 1% of lifestyle, didn't you know? Doing what I can just to get in the zone. Incremental change to help you get in the flow. But if you hit the wall, gotta pivot and go. Switch your perspective and go for the goal. That ain't the end of the road, just pivot and go. Pivot and go.
Welcome back to another episode of the Pivot and Go podcast. I hope you are all having an amazing week. This week on the podcast, we have someone who is literally changing the world. Like, I'm not even kidding when I say that, changing the world. He was Forbes 30 under 30 in 2016, one of the top 100 most intriguing entrepreneurs by Goldman Sachs, and the fastest companies, most innovative companies in the world. 4 different times. This is CEO, co-founder of New Story, Brett Hagler. What is New Story? They are making houses. They are housing the dang it. Should I pick up from there or should I start over? Tongue-tied. I'll go again. I'll rock again. I'll go again from the top. 2 takes. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Pivot and Go podcast. Thank you all for joining me today. You could be anywhere, doing anything, but you're about to soak up this knowledge we have coming your way. Hope you're having a great week because today is going to be a life-changing podcast. When I say life-changing, I'm talking life-changing. We have on the CEO, co-founder of New Story, Brett Hagler. Brett was 30 under 30 by Forbes in 2016, the top 100 most intriguing entrepreneurs by Goldman Sachs, and was named by Fast Company's most innovative companies in the world 4 different times. He's also a cancer survivor. Literally, what has this guy not done? But he is changing the world by housing the world. And they are on a mission at New Story to think outside the box, innovative ways of how to create more homes, create communities. They're even doing 3D printing. They've actually had a community in Mexico 3D printed, and they're just absolutely going to change the world. Millions of people housed, and they're going to be able to do this through all of us being able to pour into them as well. New Story, co-founder, CEO, Brett Hagler. Buckle up, because here we go.
Pivot and go.
Brett Hagler, welcome to the Pivot and Go podcast. Man, I have been looking forward to this one, literally studying you up, stalking you left and right. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, David. It's an honor to be on with you and your audience. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. You're coming to us from Charlotte right now, which I tell everybody, if you're in Charlotte, go to Viva Chicken. It will change your life. I have no sponsorship from them other than their yuca fries. So enjoy that, little Jim. Brett, hey, you have amazing mental toughness, and we're going to dive deep into that in your entrepreneurial journey, into New Story and what you are doing to change literally lives around the world. But where did you develop that mental toughness?
Yeah, I think it mainly came from playing basketball. Throughout mainly high school. I had one coach, Steve Fitzgerald, and he really instilled a lot of mental toughness and a lot of the life principles I have now that I've used as an entrepreneur were instilled by this coach. And he would do things such as, at lunch he would read us business books. I remember the first time I heard about Jim Collins and Good to Great. he was reading a bunch of high school basketball players about the mindset of going from good to great, and instilling a lot of different just mantras and principles, really focused on mental toughness. And I don't think I appreciated it as much at the time as much as I do now, in hindsight. And I really do think that was definitely one of the main reasons that I got off to a decent start as an entrepreneur and had the mental toughness to go through a lot of the adversity and the challenges that I had in the beginning, and have now every year and new challenges. I think when you get that mindset, I don't know if you ever have it perfectly figured out, but when you get on a pretty good path for a mentally tough mindset, it just unlocks so much potential of what you're capable of. And for me, sports and specifically basketball did that.
Yeah, totally. Great answer. Basketball, I kind of biased toward the sport. So
and I think also, like, at an earlier age, I figured out that obviously, like, becoming more mentally tough is not easy, right? It's a challenge in itself, and there's a lot of things to unpack with that. But I did remember figuring out that this is somewhat of a choice, right? And I could go through the work and be intentional about making the choice to be mentally tough. And man, once I latched onto that, I applied it to pretty much everything I did, right? The kind of phrase, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that applies to how you do it in sports, how you'll then go to school and perform, as a student, how you start a business, how you, the list goes on. And I think it's a choice that you can make and is attainable to make. You just have to be intentional about desiring it and putting in the work to go get it.
Great answer. Choice. That is our superpower. We're not born with it. We're given it, and we're able to use it.
Amen.
On the Pivot and Go podcast, we always ask these high performers like yourself, when was the time that you went through a situation that you just felt stuck and you had to make your biggest life pivot and be able to go out of that situation? Do you have something that jumps out to you?
Yeah, I'll give you two. So when I was my senior year in high school, when I was playing basketball, I was, I was kind of your stereotypical jock and very healthy, was, considering going to play college ball. And out of nowhere, I got diagnosed with cancer. And it was, the last thing that I ever thought would happen to me, that my parents ever thought would happen to me, that my friends, my, classmates, you name it. And happened out of nowhere. Fortunately, here I am today, and I'm fine. But it was a time where I realized that there's only so many things I can control in life, which is really not that many at all. And I figured out the one thing that I could control was my attitude, and I could control how I would respond to things that I would not ever wish upon myself or others. And so when I was 18 and I got hit with cancer, it was the first time I had gone through real adversity. Growing up, I was a very privileged kid. I had amazing parents. Of course, there were some issues, but for the most part, insanely lucky guy growing up. And to get hit with cancer out of nowhere, it really makes you understand that there are going to be macro things that happen in life that you have no control over what happened. All you control is really how you respond and your attitude. And so it taught me that lesson. I think it taught me to also have a much bigger perspective on life. It can be we're so easy to get to zoom in and just think about the short term and the near term and this day, this week, even this year, but to really pick your head up, have a bigger perspective, see the long term, see a bigger story, was also very helpful. So that really that helped shape a lot of my mindset at an earlier age, and that's fortunately translated into how I think about things as an entrepreneur now.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's led to your entrepreneurial journey, which is something of legend. I mean, how old are you now, Brett?
Oh, I'm getting older. I'm 31, so I don't feel any more as like the young buck. I started a new story during my 25th birthday, and so amazing. I definitely felt a lot younger then. But David, the other pivot that happened it was after college. So I graduated in 2012. I went to Florida State. Go Noles! Not a fancy school or a fancy resume, but proud alumni. And after college, I was a really ambitious guy, but I had not yet figured out that that life is a gift, and it's not just for me to go gain for myself, and that it's about we and not me. And I was a pretty selfish dude, and I really was using the talent and some of the leadership ability I've been given, and really my ambition, entirely for myself. And I was chasing after what I call the 3 Gs, which is not gratitude and generosity and God. It was girls, gold, and glory. And I was doing that throughout college and a little bit after college. And fortunately, I realized that this was not the equation that was going to bring me fulfillment if I was prioritizing these things. And I just was just longing for a bigger purpose and a more meaningful life. And people get there in different ways, but for me, during this longing, I met a gentleman that I struck a relationship with. I was actually trying to raise venture capital money from my first startup, and he told me about his faith and about his relationship with Jesus, and that for me was the change of my life. And so I made a total 180 through a revived childhood faith that before I thought was boring, too many rules, not adventurous, you can't be successful, you can't have fun, you can't be ambitious. It's just, I was like, I'll try to figure this thing out when I'm like 50 or 60 or 70, or maybe try to hack the whole thing and figure it out like right before I die, because I thought there was no way that living for a bigger purpose could be more fulfilling and exciting than living life for me. And when I made that change, which was in my earlier 20s, just a whole new world opened up for me, a whole new perspective, a whole new vision for life, a whole new purpose, a whole new meaning. And it redirected not all, because you're still a human and I fight this still, but it redirected a lot of my selfish ambition to turn into a more selfless ambition. And that was the pivot that I made, where I then wanted to use some of my drive and some of my entrepreneurship like for a bigger purpose. And at that point, I didn't think it was going to be a charity. And obviously, people don't have to start a charity to have a big purpose. You can do that in many different ways. But that was when I really started to change what my vision for life was going to be.
Selfless ambition, man. I love that so much. Your story sounds a lot like mine. Like it was all about just me. And then Jesus comes into your life and you see like, hey, this purpose that we have, this passion that we have can be used for so much more. And it's funny when you talk to people and they're like, yeah, of course I want to go to heaven, but why wouldn't you want to spend that time with God right here on earth? Like we just want to put it off into the end. So totally, absolutely love that, man. Thank you for sharing that. And
there was a quick, just real quick, there was something I remembered, in my early 20s. And I think whether it's through a revived faith or something else, right? Because people can, of course, get there in different ways for them finding meaning. I remember hearing this analogy of a pastor, Louis Giglio, talking about, life can either be like, you can either star in your own little show that's like, life's all about me. Like, this is my own little show. And then you're literally one of like, who knows what it's now, over, tens of billions of people throughout history. And you're part of this tiny little, just dot that is just me. So you can star in your own show, or ideally you can join a much bigger story, right? And you can be part of a much bigger story. And yes, you're going to play a much smaller role in that bigger story and that bigger picture. And that just really shifted my mindset of like, I was just trying to star in my own little show. And I think a lot of people will tell you that's usually not the equation for any kind of fulfillment or happiness.
That's a really good analogy. I like that that picture that you just drew for us there. And you have used that to immense proportions in your entrepreneurial journey and news story. And there's so many questions I want to ask you about this, but let's do it from a way that we'll work our way backwards. So let the audience know what news story is about, what you're doing, the absolute mission that you are on, and then we'll work it back on how you got into it, the journey that you had.
Yep, that's great. So we're in our 6th year now, and like I said, I started News Story when I was 25 after a trip that I took to Haiti. And what we do today is our mission is we pioneer solutions to end global homelessness. And what that actually means is that we work with families that are living in extreme poverty, usually between $3 to $10 a day.
Wow.
They do not have safe shelter. So they're living in sometimes tents or pieced together, shacks, if you will. It's inadequate housing. And we're able to come alongside them and partner with them and build a multi-generational home in a community, in a village of other homes. And it's a life-changing home and difference that not only helps them get the basic human needs of clean sanitation, safety, both physical and psychological, and then of course shelter, right? And having those basics then enables people to actualize their potential and step more into the talents and the ambitions and the potential that God gave them. And so it's been beautiful to watch that happen. We've now done funded a little more than 3,000 homes. And across Haiti, El Salvador, and Mexico, and it builds about 26 different communities. Those homes are all in different communities. So think of like urban planning and urban design of hundreds of homes in a community, and we've been able to raise now close to $70 million doing that. And we try to bring innovation when it comes to how is the home design? How can the process be refreshed and streamlined? And how do we cut out a lot of the old school status quo traditional ways of working? And how do we bring ingenuity and forward thinking and take risk with some of the families that are in the most need? Because what usually happens is a high standard of excellence, breakthrough technology, usually reaches the families that need it most last, not first, right? It's the traditional model is usually, let's, try to send some people down and volunteer and build some homes, or let's, that's great. That's a net positive, like that's awesome. But who is really trying to come at this and try to solve the problem at a bigger scale where we can impact, millions and millions of people. And that's the mission that News Story is on right now. And I've never been more excited about this decade and kind of the bigger vision that we have. So that's where we are today. And let me know how you want to rewind into that.
Yes, amazing. So I want to unpack that first. What you're doing is creating systems and a process to equal results. What most people do, which is a great way to do it, but it's almost like they're just going to try to pick off one by one. You're going to go down there and build a house. You're going to feel good about yourself, but you're setting up systems. So how are you going about doing this from an outside the box perspective? Because I know you had an amazing TED talk on the future of 3D printing. Like, how does that correlate the new technology into building these communities?
Yeah. So our bigger vision, and this is really what we're working on for the decade, is we want to house 1 million people before 2030, and that's going to cost about $1 billion, and we're going to do about 220,000 homes. But the bigger idea, David, is in doing that at a pretty large scale, we want to prove the most effective and efficient system in the world to house 1 million people in poverty. And then we can export that and share it with other large governments and other actors that want to house 1 million people in extreme poverty. We ideally want to then have all of the tools and the systems and the software and the hardware innovation, the material science innovation, the financing innovation, you name it, to do it in the most efficient way. So that's the bigger vision of what we want to do. And then how What was the question you asked?
No, that's the bigger. I mean, we're talking about the 3D printing. So you are trying to
So
efficiency.
So
I love
that's
it.
kind of the bigger vision.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so how we back into that is there needs to be innovation on the actual, like, just how you build the house, right?
Totally.
And for us, it's all about decreasing the cost of housing, right? Sounds very simple, but it's like, if we could put all our eggs in our innovation around how do we decrease the cost of a house. Now, our homes are, for folks listening in the U.S., our homes are going to sound very low cost, right? Right now, our homes are between $7,000 to $10,000 US for multi-generational house, which is great, right?
Awesome.
That's low cost,
It's awesome.
But we're trying to cut that in half. And
Wow.
why would you cut that in half? Well, because you could double the amount of people that you can serve. And what you also are able to do is you actually make that home more affordable for even families in extreme poverty to actually, for them to pay for the majority of the house, so that you're creating more of a market system that isn't just funded by only philanthropy and government subsidy, because that the pool of money of philanthropy and government subsidy is way too small to actually solve this problem at a bigger scale. And so we're trying to use philanthropy as a way to, yes, directly impact and change people's lives directly. But the bigger idea is, how do we prove new innovations that we can scale out and have other people use to make the homes lower cost, so that they're more affordable for these families. And 3D printing homes happens to be one method of an R&D and innovation that we have to ideally decrease the cost of a home, increase the speed at which the home is built, and doing those two things without sacrificing quality, but actually improving quality and improving design. So that's the moonshot. It's insanely hard.
Totally.
But we've been fortunate to get off to a pretty good start with our partner Icon, which is a startup out of Austin. And we've now went from an idea of not ever 3D printing a house before, not having a machine, to successfully doing the first prototype in Austin with our partner Icon, and it was the first 3D printed home in the U.S. To pass U.S. housing code. And then we kind of went to the next level and made a version 2 and put a 3D printing machine on an 18-wheeler and drove it down to southern Mexico and dumped it off in the middle of nowhere, and 3D printed a neighborhood of houses successfully. And so it's the first neighborhood of 3D printed homes in history, and we're pretty excited about the future. So that's one example of how we're trying to innovate the home costs, and there's other innovations coming.
Brett, you are doing it. That is amazing. You're literally the Jetsons, but better. Well, seriously.
Long way to go. But it's we have this mantra at News Story that your idea is crazy until it's not. And so when we first had this concept, and this applies to a lot of things we do and are doing now, but we'll just use 3D printing houses as an example. When we first had the concept, it had not been proven before, right? And so there were way more naysayers of how could you guys ever take the risk? And it was very extreme. It's still risky, but it was really risky in the very beginning, like really high risk. How could you spend that money when you could just use the same amount of money that you're trying to use on proving if a 3D printing machine can print a house? Why not just use that to build 20 houses how they've always been done, right? So our opportunity cost was, if we don't put in the R&D money to try to create this breakthrough technology, we could just use that and do it how it's always been done, right? Which would still be nice because we'd be able to help, a lot of families. But the bigger idea was, let's bring ingenuity. Let's take a calculated risk where if it failed, News Story wasn't going to be done, right? It was a calculated risk. But a lot of people said, dude, this be more normal. Like you're crazy, all the things you'd say. And then it works, right? It works, and we get an insane amount of global press. Apple TV did a documentary on the whole project. There's now a lot of opportunity, and And that's why we say it's crazy until it's not, right? And we apply that to a lot of different things right now. And I think, for you listening, you're crazy. What is crazy till it's not for you, right? And that could be anything from writing your first book, funding for me, it was, how do I start this organization and try to fund, our first 10 houses, right? That sounded really crazy when I was not even 25 yet and had no experience. And so just ask you, what is some kind of crazy idea that you have that if you told other people, they would think, whoa, this is outside of normal. This is outside of what's expected. And that means you're onto something, right? That's a really good sign if you're getting reactions of people saying like, whoa, wait a second. Because what you're doing is you're stepping away from the status quo. You're stepping away from stasis, and you're going into a whole new realm that is pushing and that is stretching and is setting yourself apart, really.
Pivot and go.
All right, so as you know, I am a nut for optimization. That's having your body and your mind at the highest level possible. So, I make a lot of protein smoothies and I make them taste really, really good. But I have to know it has the highest quality ingredients. I don't want any of all this other junk that everybody throws in that you see at GNC. And I have found that brand, New Zest. They're plant-based ingredients, the purest and most potent source of nutrition to give you a powerful, well-balanced mix of essential vitamins and minerals. I'm telling you, the creamy vanilla, the matcha flavor, I'll mix it into smoothies, into yogurt. Sometimes I'll just open up the package and drink it straight. It's that good. And it's that good for you. New Zest. So New Zest is giving listeners to this podcast, this Pivot and Go podcast, a special deal, lucky for you. If you look at the link below and in the show notes, you will see it's Pivot 15. Pivot 15 will give you 15% off any purchase at New Zest. Newzest.com, Pivot 15. Get your protein powder upgraded.
Pivot and go.
I love this. This is awesome. I want to go back to one point you said earlier and then talk more about your journey of how you got to this point. You're 31 years old and you're one of the smartest human beings I've ever heard. It's amazing, man. But
that's far from true. But go ahead.
Okay, so you talked about empowerment philanthropy. And I never heard this, but it makes so much sense. It clicked when you said you're having these people pay for the houses that they're getting built. Most of the time it's just given to them. And you don't feel the sense of ownership or the sense of like it's actually something that you had a hand in, and they do. If they pay for it, they do. So not only in that empowerment, when someone who doesn't have money is able to pay for a house, think about that confidence boost. Wow, you just bought a house. You were homeless and you bought a house. Yeah. Unbelievable. That is empowerment philanthropy is crucial, man. So just had to get that out there. Thank you.
We think it's the best way. And, it's a combo of they're not right now, because we're choosing to work with basically the poorest group. They can't pay for the entire house. So what we use philanthropy for is we just subsidize what can they actually not pay, meaning like out of their monthly income. Now it's a very low monthly income, but we want them to pay, which is very reasonable across the country, to pay about 20 to 25% of their monthly income would go towards housing, right? Which is very common. So our job is, how do we bring innovation to get the cost down to a place where families can pay that certain amount per month, and then whatever they can't actually afford, that's what we'll subsidize with philanthropy. And it's beautiful to see that families actually want this. They want to be able to tell their kids and their grandkids that this house, like I contributed significantly to this dream of a home. And that's something from a dignity standpoint that, is one of the best gifts that we could help them with.
Oh, I love that. Brett, tell me how you got into this. You don't have to go super deep all the way back to your childhood when you were born, but what was the spark that was like, man, I got to make this happen?
Yeah, I think it's two things. One, I felt an itch like in college of just like wanting to learn more about entrepreneurship. And I didn't grow up being an entrepreneur. For me, it was more like sports was kind of my competitive outlet and what I wanted to get better at. So I wasn't one of those kids that grew up and, had like, the lawn cutting businesses and all these things you hear of entrepreneurs growing up. It wasn't that. In college, it kind of clicked for me. And I just started reading books and biographies about people that just decided to say, hey, I want to step away from the status quo and I just want to choose and decide to like do things differently. And that started to click with me. I just started to learn and became obsessed with learning from others that have done that. And then I started a for-profit startup right out of college. This for-profit startup ended up failing. But this for-profit startup, it was an online e-commerce company, and we wanted to partner with two charities because we were going to give back a little bit of the money we're making to a charity, right? And so one of those charities was an organization called Charity Water, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and that's how I got to meet Scott and Vic Harrison, who are now on our board and are dear friends and have influenced me and News Story like crazy. And then the other charity was an organization in Haiti called Mission of Hope. And I went down on a trip to Haiti with my best friend, Mike Arrieta, and my brother, Josh, because we wanted to see a charity that we were going to give money to from this startup, right? And I'm telling you this story because I started making these choices that were different by starting a startup right out of college that actually ended up failing. It led me to so many learnings, and it led me down to an experience in Haiti that's where I was exposed to the problem of families not having shelter, right? And so that was how I decided to end up starting News Story, was because I put myself in these situations that were not normal, right? That were a little bit different than what I could have easily chose to do. And so, I have this phrase of, I don't know, I stole it from somebody, but you can manufacture serendipity, right? And you can choose certain paths that will put you in circumstances where you're going to meet different kind of people that you normally wouldn't meet if you're just doing the normal stuff, and you're going to be exposed to experiences that, if you're open-minded, have a chance to shape maybe the next few years of your life, the next decade of your life, or the rest of your life. But you've got to put yourself out there and get out of just the normal, sameness. And that was what I was able to do. And so when I was in Haiti, I saw the problem firsthand. It absolutely broke my heart that kids were being born on dirt floors in trash cans, not being able to have any safety at night if it stormed or rained. And from there, David, the entrepreneurial side of me, I actually didn't think that I would start a charity because I wanted to be just kind of like my own tech entrepreneur and support charities. But I wanted to support this cause, and so, which was basically global homelessness. And I tried to find organizations that I would get really excited about. And the more I looked, the more, for me, which was a younger, kind of more tech-oriented startup entrepreneur, I was frustrated that it felt like a lot of the organizations I looked at were operating in a very traditional status quo way, where innovation wasn't prioritized, technology wasn't prioritized, a certain standard of talent and excellence wasn't prioritized. And so that was actually the problem that I felt could be solved and deserved to actually start an organization instead of just join one. And so I really wanted to refresh, or in a sense reinvent, the traditional ways of working as a nonprofit. And that was how we got started. And that's actually one of the reasons why called it News Story, was because wanted to bring a news story to, most importantly, the families that we get to partner with, but also a news story in how we think about reimagining and refreshing the traditional methods of charity. And that's how we got started in 2015. I have this mantra that we have a new story now to dream big, but to start small. And for those listening, when I first started this, I had no money. I had a failed startup. I had no experience in international development or the charity world. I had no clue how I was going to be able to one day, try to fund, hundreds of thousands of houses, eventually over 1 million homes. But I didn't let that big vision paralyze me from starting, right? I set a smaller goal of how do I literally fund one house, right? And at that point, it was $6,000. And how do I create an experience for donors and for our families that we'd partner with that's just way different than the traditional method? And so, I worked really hard, met my co-founders, built an MVP, did all this very manual work in the beginning to actually prove that this is something that people wanted. And so that one house turned into, how do we fund 100 homes? And it just scaled up from there. And so if you're listening, don't let, a big, hairy, audacious goal, that's great. But don't let that paralyze you from trying to have that whole strategy and funding. And I mean, there's a million challenges to overcome for a big, hairy, audacious goal. Don't let that paralyze you from starting with, in my case, one house, right? So my question to you listening is what is your start small example of what you could do?
Pivot and go.
That feeling you get when you just wake up and you are not rested or recharged? Yeah, we all have it. We all go through it. How do I wake up with full energy every single day? It is literally the game changer itself, chilly sleep. I have an Ooler that goes underneath my mattress and cools my body temperature to the ideal temperature to get deep sleep. REM, high HRV scores. Now, I have mine pretty cold, about 57 degrees. The optimal level is between 57 and 65 degrees. I have a weighted blanket, which just cools my body, and I'm just sleeping in restorative sleep. So when I wake up in the morning, no matter how many hours I get, I am juiced up and ready to go. And lucky for you, you can wake up the same way. The people at Chili Sleep are giving you a discount, giving you a code. So go to chilitechnology.com/pages/David Nurse to get your special discount pricing there. Remember, that is chilitechnology.com/pages/David Nurse, or just click the link below and it'll take you right there. It's sleep like a polar bear tonight. You get the best night's sleep of your life. Chili Sleep.
Pivot and go.
Brett, I love your passion. It just oozes out of you, your passion to help and serve others. And you know what? I love how you look outside the box. You throw traditional out the window. Nonprofits? Nah, let's look at doing it a different way. How to build houses? You know what? Let's look at doing it a different way. That's why you're going to change the game of this world by being able to look, a little bit different, a different perspective. So, man, I just kudos to that and then some. And I would love to talk to you all day. I have so many questions for you, man. But for the respect of your time, I'm going to throw you on the rapid fire hot seat. So this can be short answers, whatever comes to your mind, spit it out there. You've already given me some gold in this area. If you can use the same one that you have or a new one. Do you have any mindset quotes that you live by that's maybe on your fridge or on your bathroom mirror or tattooed on the inside of your eyelids? Anything that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I've got two that
Nice.
I think have been, pretty influential in my life, and then I got one more that's a little bit more kind of business focused. So the first one, somebody told me this when I was in my early 20s, and I adopted it. And so to this day, I try to run a lot of things through this filter. And it was a quote by some movie I haven't even seen. It was a quote by Tom Hanks, and it said, the quote was, "It's supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Nice.
Hard is what makes it great." And I took that and I kept thinking okay, I could do the easy thing, the more comfortable thing, or I could do the hard thing. And year after year after year, I always try to choose what's the harder thing, because if I choose that one, that's how I'm going to grow and stretch, right? And obviously at some point you don't want every single choice in your life to be the hardest thing. It's not that, but it's just, figuring out how do I choose things that are more difficult and harder, because that's how I'm going to grow. And then the other one is that bold ideas attract bold people.
Yeah.
And this has been very true for my journey. Like I really am not one of the smartest people that are usually in the room. There's a lot of things that I'm not great at as a CEO and founder. But one of the things that we've really done, I think, well, and has been probably one of the key reasons for our, a good start we've had is by being bold, right? And I've learned that by being bold, that alone is going to differentiate you, because not that many people want to actually be bold. And when you're bold, you attract bold team members, you attract bold partners, bold funders, and that can actually be your advantage. So I'll stop with those.
That's great. And I love how you said that. You might not be the smartest person, but you are bold. You're the smartest person because you're willing to take risks. You're willing to bet on yourself. You're willing to think differently. That's what makes you smart. Okay. What does leaving a legacy mean to you? And you're going to leave an amazing legacy. So what, other than like, hey, you know what? New story was this company. What does leaving a legacy mean to you?
Yeah. For me, and this has been a big growth area in the last really 2 years. For me, I really do believe this, like at the end of my life, it's not a success if it's not inside out. And what that means is that for me, what's most important is my faith and my character. And then ultimately how I'll prioritize being a husband, a dad, a friend, a son, a brother. Right. And those things and how I love those people and how I prioritize those people, that is what is most important. And my legacy hopefully is that this was very clearly prioritized. And as he grew older, he grew more into who God made him to be, with his character, hopefully continuing to develop and to improve. So that is what's most important. And then, after that, from a more of a macro perspective, I think there's a chance to build a multi-billion-dollar organization that hopefully is going to be around for 100 plus years, and ideally would impact tens of millions of people. But I really do, like, that last part is not as important by anywhere close to the first part. And there's another mantra or quote is that I've really latched on to, and it's that it's more important of who I become than what I achieve. And from a faith standpoint, I am 1,000% convinced that Jesus cares more about who I become and my heart and my character than if News Story is able to impact 1 million people, right? And it took me some time to really believe that and understand that, but I really do. It has to be inside out.
Totally, man. And you have that inside for yourself that you're able to go share with the outside.
That's right.
Beautifully said. Okay, here's a fun one for you. Let's say you got a dinner party. Okay, who are you inviting? Give me 3 guests, dead or alive, that you want to have a conversation with. Who are you inviting, and what are you cooking, eating, postmating in?
Oh, gosh. All right.
Tough one.
I would do a combo of, I definitely would have Jesus in there.
Yep.
And we'd be drinking good wine.
Yep.
And we would have some kind of amazing, probably steak and feast. I would probably invite, more so today, I think it'd be very interesting to bring Elon Musk in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a fun conversation with those two. And then, somebody else.
I mean, I can always join. I can be a filler for you. Jesus and Elon.
Who would you bring? Who would you add to that table?
You know what? Who I bring?
You, David.
Here it is.
Me, David, Elon, Jesus, and who else?
You ready for this? Larry David. Yeah. I'm bringing Larry David.
Yes.
Yep. You need some comic relief.
That would be so good.
I know. He's the one guy.
That would be so good. He's so funny. Yeah, that would be the best.
There you go. Sweet dinner. It's a great dinner. Hey, man, I appreciate you so much, Brett, for all that you're doing. for all that you're doing for the world. How can we all follow you? Just know everything about New Story, your mission, your journey.
Yeah, you follow along with me. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, so my handle is just my name, Brett Hagler. And you can probably if you're curious, you could DM me if you have any questions about stuff. And then for News Story, we have a new monthly giving program that we call the Neighborhood, and we just launched it this year. And it's essentially a subscription program you're subscribing to help change a family's life every month that doesn't have a house. And you can give at any level. And we're trying to really scale this program and get tens of thousands and then up to over 100,000 members of what we call the Neighborhood. So that'll be the best way to join News Story. You could just go to newstorycharity.org and learn more about our mission.
Love it, Brett. I'm in. Me and my wife tithe every month, so we're going to be definitely tithing to you. I love the mission you're on. Okay, last question I have for you that we ask everybody on the Pivot and Go podcast. If you could give one piece of drop the mic, can be a line, a word, advice to someone who feels stuck in their situation, how do they make that pivot and go? You've given us so much gold. You have given us so much gold, man.
I'm going to give two. So I'm going to reiterate, dream big, but start small.
Yes.
Start with one attainable goal that you can work towards. And then I would just encourage you that you gain more confidence with these small wins, right? So you may be in a place where you feel like you don't have the confidence to move forward in whatever it is that you want to change about your life. But by getting these small wins, it builds momentum and it compounds, and you start to gain more confidence for the person that you can actually become. So just start small and be persistent in whatever it is that you want to work towards.
Brett, you're a stud, man. Thank you so much for coming on the Pivot and Go podcast, for dropping all this knowledge and just all that you have coming, man. We're gonna support you, and yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about you. I do want to put in one request though. If when we get this the 3D printing housing rolling, can I put a spot for Bora Bora for me and my wife? Can we get us like a little 3D printed hut?
We'll work on that. Yeah, that's right.
Brett, thanks so much, man. Go enjoy that Viva chicken there.
All right, bro. Thanks, David.
Pivot and go.